beep. We are shifting from our second theme, right? Our first theme, we kind of opened it up a little bit with the feminine and women, with how we're relating with women, with just starting to notice, starting to contemplate where our consciousness is sitting with women. And then the next contemplation, the next theme we entered into was that feminine and the father, and really specifically how the father blueprint gives us this blueprint for leadership, starting to track how we are leading ourselves, starting to track where we're being asked to go, and how our leader and how our own leadership can bring us there, right? And the beauty of that piece when it comes to raw hot power is there is an element of feminine power that I see. Like if we're talking raw hot feminine power, and I'm not talking like woman, I'm talking like archetypical feminine. It's so fucking nuts. Like it's just the swirling, like everythingness, complete potential, like anything and everything could be whatever. It's like every natural disaster that could ever possibly happen, all swarming in one big storm cloud, right? It's just this like, it's like the Big Bang. That's what I often think of. I'm like, oh, it's just like crazy, raw, wild power. But as women, we're not just feminine energy. As women, bringing online this element of our own leader, of our own father, of our inner father, like the director, the container, the guide, the shepherd. This actually allows our human power to be directed, right? When it's undirected, it dissipates itself. All that raw feminine power that we have ends up dissipating, right? So that leadership, I'm so glad we got to spend about 2 weeks on really contemplating and starting to come into contemplation with our leadership, with where we're being called into, with what areas of our life need to be led, need to be pressed forward to help us to go in that direction, right? It's kind of giving us bounds. And what I'm excited about now is that we get to continue that contemplation, right? I dropped an audio in our thread yesterday, pretty much just talking about how like we're going to keep a new thread open of just tracking that leadership, tracking where you're leading yourself, tracking that directionality. And today we get to shift into something that I am excited about, and it's a different tone for sure. And the tone we're shifting into is the feminine and men. And I want to know, when I just said that, like what happened for you? What happened for you? Did you have thoughts? Did you have feelings? Did you notice anything come up in your body? Nervousness in my chest. Yeah. I got excited, shoulders back, chest up. Uh-huh. Chest energy. Mm-hmm. And knowing that the tone we're shifting into is the feminine in men, what I feel curious about is what what would you like to, excuse me, I got some cacao right on a special spot in my throat. What would you love to leave this call with? And what you say might not be what you leave this call with, but it'll inform me. What would you love to leave this call with, knowing that the tone that we're starting to enter is the feminine in men? Ease. Yeah, totally. Appreciation. Yeah, awesome. I think we can make this happen. All right, couple breaths here. Ah, ah, ah. Good. Yeah, just starting to notice again, what kind of breaths does your body need right now? What kind of movement does your body ask for? What kind of sounds? And not needing to attach any meaning here to any of these breaths, any of these sounds or movements. And just letting your system work in its way. Ha. Ooh. Gorgeous. And I'm going to prompt you in a little bit deeper to your own inner sensing here for a moment. So just taking a few breaths that, yeah, allow you to come a little bit more back and in, a little bit more down and in. Again, if there's more regulation, your system eyes closed. If there's a little bit more dysregulation, eyes open, connect to a resource. You're inside the feminine seat. You might give yourself your command word if you remember it, and just noticing how on these exhales, your field, your energy, your system can shift toward your back body, toward your back line. Toward the back of your head, neck, shoulder blades, back sides of your arms and hands, back flats of your spine, along your spine, the sacrum, your butt, down that back line. Good. Following the line of the spine right down, past the anus, past the perineum, into the backs of the thighs, behind the knees, the calves, back sides of the ankles, the Achilles and heels. I'm just taking a few more moments here, a few more breaths. Ah, ah. Yeah, so good. Noticing how on this next coming exhale, your body even drops another layer down into its own ease, into its relaxation. Anything that's here, just including it. Any discomfort, any pain, any mental chatter, just including it. No problem. Just take a note of your body as if you were tracking it in the chat again, right? Maybe you notice spaciousness in your head. Maybe you notice your biceps, tingling in your feet. And if it helps, you might even say them out loud here for a moment. Good. And now I want you to notice what happens in your body when I say the word men. What happens in your body when I say the word men? And then gently just bring yourself as you're ready to come into the chat and just track with us. What happened in your body? Ah. Really subtle flutter in heart space. Second time you said it, my arms came online. Yeah. So, like, full, yeah, that heart extension out into the arms, hands. A gentle jolting. I like that word. Uplifting sensation up pelvic floor, diagonal to the left eye and cheek. Love that. Love that tracking. Love that tracking. Beautiful. And just taking a few more breaths. You might even just say it in your mind or out loud, just saying that word men. My legs come online. I notice some tension in my shoulders release. I notice a tightness in my chin, like up to my bottom lip. And just track if you notice anything else here. Good. Tight chest. Yeah. Yeah. So not needing to give this meaning. Again, we're just starting to open up the system to this conversation. This conversation, and I feel really excited to be in this conversation today. And again, what I want to really invite you guys into is to continue to anchor using the chat. Continue to anchor using the chat, right? And we talked about this in like the feminine seat. We've talked about this inside of this space, but really letting yourself use that space of writing as a way of keeping your field really woven with this collective field, and also noticing how, as you're receiving a transmission, because this today, like this is a lot of information. This is a lot of like, I'm essentially wanting to bring to you in this call what I've come to know about men. And I have come to know a lot more than I did before in the last 3.5 years. So inviting you that as you're receiving a transmission, it's going to anchor for you. That's why I call it anchoring. It's going to anchor for you more deeply if you can track moment to moment what's happening in your system, what's happening in your field, what's happening in your mind as this information is being transmitted. Yeah. So instead of just being a passive listener, really inviting you into participation inside of this call, right? If I say something and you're like, oh my gosh, my whole heart just like collapsed, or like, wow, my back body just wanted to like really open after you said that, or whoa, my mind just went like totally blank and confused suddenly, right? Just really tracking these as we go here. Yeah. Yay. Okay, so before I start my riffing, I want to hear from both of you again in the thread here. Both of you are in relationship with a man, yeah. What I want to know is what is alive in your field of relating with men right now. It could be a challenge. It could be somewhere you're really being like humbled, or somewhere you're really taking responsibility, an insight that you've been having lately, right? Something that you are finding appreciation for. I just want, wow, my whole body's really just online with this. Yeah, I want you to come into the thread and just share what's alive in your field relationally with men right now. That face got me. Been there. I've been there. Oh. Oh. I am excited to be, yeah, just in this conversation right now, in that I'm finding myself like objectively in the healthiest place I've ever been with in my relational field to men, which is huge. Which is huge. That has taken some time, ladies. Let me tell you. Okay, Jeannie says discerning my own avoidance versus what has simply not been paid attention to as I continue to change and grow my business. That's interesting. So, like, what have I just not noticed versus what have I intentionally not noticed? Is that right? Uh-huh. He's going through his own big initiation too, sensing some distance. Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious how that distance has been feeling for you. My partner's touch is offering so much softness for me. Same. Oh my gosh. I'm being invited into more gentleness when interacting with him. Ooh, yeah, we're gonna touch on that today. For sure. Mm, mm. Yeah. Anything else? Anything else that you notice here? If you just take a breath into that. What's in my relational field with men right now? I think I've had just so many freaking flavors of what's been in my field in relationship to men in the last 5 years, even. I'm like, whoa. He at least says at the same time, I'm being more honest. Even if that means bringing fire, I'm bringing it. Uh-huh. Jeannie says the distance feels nice actually as I figure my own shit out. Like, okay, I can breathe here. Good, very good. Mm-hmm. Exploring dynamics deeply with sex. Nice. Yeah, it's fucking powerful territory. Yeah. Over the last 5 years, damn, shifted way out of my own controlling masculine independence. And he has stepped up for me to be soft in so many ways. Deep appreciation. Yes, babe. Yes, babe. Yes. Being worked in the realm of desire, big time. That makes me feel very curious. You are being worked in the realm of your desires in relationship and sexuality and in all of it in life. Mm-hmm. 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 Everything. All of it. Uh-huh. Gorgeous. Oh, loving this. Okay. Oh, all right. So I'm like, there's not even a single chord that I'm noticing. I'm like, yes, right. This is what relating and the relational field with men oftentimes feels like for me. It's like so deeply multifaceted, right? So deeply multifaceted. So mhm. What I want to bring to you guys today is a transmission on intimacy with men. And intimacy with men is not the same as polarization with men. And I want to be really clear on what I can bring, right? What information and what knowledge I've been really, really working with and studying, and what I feel that I have come to a point of integration and understanding that I can actually, with integrity, transmit it to you. Intimacy and polarity I see in kind of over culture right now are like really kind of homogenized. And what I want to do right away here is pull them apart a little bit. They, of course, are like the most beautiful complements to each other, and they work in such a profound way together. And intimacy is not polarity. And I am not ready to teach on polarity. That's a realm that I'm still very much working in, still very much in practice with, still very much fucking up a lot, still finding myself in tons of child consciousness, right? Intimacy, on the other hand, is a place that I've I've come to feel like I am like embodied in, moving in, right? I'm like a lot of adult consciousness here. And what I want to note first is when it comes to intimacy and polarity, I almost think about this like relationships with men outside the bedroom and inside the bedroom. And that's not exactly true, of course, because inside the bedroom, there's so much intimacy happening. But right, there's like the overtly sexual charge and maybe the overtly like heart charge, right? Sacral energy and heart energy. And what I want to note first is I feel great about bringing a transmission on intimacy because it is, I'm going to use the word dangerous. And that might seem like a dramatic word, but from my experience and practice and learning from my teachers, the practice of polarity can be dangerous or harmful to a relational field without intimacy. Yeah. So when we're looking at intimacy and polarity, I really like to look at it like this, like intimacy here, polarity here, the field and the foundation and the base of intimacy is so vital to establish before being in the practice of polarity. Big exhale. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. The reason being that polarity is like an energetic practice. It's like a technique, it's like a technology. And polarity is an amplifier, right? If you think about a battery, batteries work because of literally polarity, like physics, the polarity of physics, right? The way that electricity moves is through polarity. It's an amplifier. So if the base of intimacy, and that intimacy has the sensations of trust, it has the sensations of safety, it has the sensations of regulation, of width, of adult, right? If that base is there and present and practiced and online, polarity will amplify that, right? Gorgeous. Wow, beautiful. The fucking places you can go when you're amplifying adult consciousness, right? And if intimacy in general or moment to moment is shaking, if there's not a lot of width, if there's a lot of child online and polarity is trying to be practiced on top of that, it's amplifying that. Yeah. So I want to make that distinction. I want to make that claim, and I want to acknowledge that again, I'm not transmitting on polarity. Yeah, I imagine in a couple of years after more and more practice in my own life, that will be a piece that I'll be able to feel really good about transmitting on. Not yet. I want to roll my shoulders back. Yeah, I know, me too. I was like doing a lot of this. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. Has anyone had that experience where you're wanting to or feeling like you're trying to practice polarity and it just feels like fucking agitating? Yeah. Yeah. Or like I'm doing the things that like I saw on that Instagram reel that are like 5 ways to polarize them. And I'm like, that didn't fucking work.
When you say polarity, do you mean like the masculine role and the feminine role?
Yeah, totally, totally. I really like anchoring, taking, behaving from that, like, yeah, more like way leaning back into the feminine elements of yourself, and him leaning into his masculine elements, or you wanting him to be in his masculine elements. I feel like a shadow of polarity work when it's not integrated on top of intimacy work is like, oh, if I can be more enough in my feminine, it will polarize him into his masculine. That's language that I hear online a lot. And again, if that intimacy is not present in the field, yeah, ick. Exactly. Ick is right. Yeah. If that intimacy is not present in the field, if that coherence isn't present in the field, that can just be such a messy, messy process. Yeah. Okay, a couple of breaths there. Ah, a little bit of research in there. Mhm. Ah, wah, 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 wah. Mhm. And just continuing to track here in the thread. What do you notice? What do you notice in your body? I notice a little bit of tightness in my jaw. Eyes are tired. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, get that fascial work. Shoulders tight, throat agitated. Yeah. 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 So just welcoming, including everything that's here right now. This can definitely be a conversation and a field where child consciousness exists. Lots, 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 right? the child consciousness is so concerned with getting love, right? Ensuring love. And for women who are romantically drawn to men, this is one of the biggest pockets, right? For sure. Yeah. So just including anything, whether it's really overt child consciousness that you can feel in your mind or just any of that in your body. Yeah, just including the heck out of that. Maybe giving yourself some really solid touch. That feels good. Okay. So the conversation, the transmission that I really want to bring to you today is in the realm of intimacy. And specifically, what has allowed me to what's allowed me to practice the most intimacy, what's allowed me to create the most intimacy is a sense of understanding. Yeah. If I feel like I understand you, I have a lot of room for you, right? Inherently, being able to understand another person is adult. Yeah, it holds the tone of the adult consciousness, right? The child consciousness is kind of developmentally even held in the individual, right? That's why kids are like, I don't want to share my toy with that guy over there. I don't like him. This is my toy, right? Like it's like I'm concerned with this, right? I'm concerned here. And I'm curious, like immediately when I say I'm concerned with this, and even the tone that I just took, I'm like, I can hear that when my child's online in my relationship with my partner. I'm concerned with this. This is what I'm fucking worried about. This is who I advocate for. Yeah. And there's beauty in that. There's a lot of energy in that. And when it comes to a relational field, you lose when you are only advocating for yourself. Yeah. When it comes to a relational field, especially one that you may be interested in developing for an extended period of time, right? I just got engaged, lifelong partnership. I lose if I am advocating for myself in front of advocating for the relational field. Yeah. So what this conversation really is, it's a practice, it's an expansion, and it's an anchoring into more adult consciousness in the field of relating through understanding. And for me, the biggest, really, and which feels funny to me, the biggest piece that has allowed me to be in greater understanding of men, of my man specifically, right? So that's my relational field I get to practice in, is understanding his biology. Literally understanding biologically who he is. And I'm curious if there's anything that comes up for you guys there, like my throat, my face, my brain gets kind of on understanding him biologically. And what I want to bring to you is, yeah, this opportunity to be in greater sight, to be able to see him more fully through literally his biology. That being said, the first thing we need to note is that men and male bodies are vastly biologically different than women, profoundly biologically different than women. Yeah, brain chemistry and hormonally. Not even brain chemistry, because brain chemistry is essentially hormonal, right? The endocrine system of a male body is vastly different than the endocrine system of the female body. And the brain structure of men is different than the brain structure of a female brain. Yes, we know this. Mm-hmm. So I feel my child nervousness. Yeah, totally. Just so welcoming that in. Ah, all right, loves. So again, my hope, my intention is that this information breeds wider understanding, breeds more adult consciousness. Like I said, men are profoundly different than male bodies are profoundly different than female bodies hormonally and structurally in the brain. Now, the first piece I'll speak to is the ratio of gray matter to white matter, right? Gray matter in the brain, white matter in the brain. This is the structural element of the difference between men and women, male brain, female brain. I'm probably going to keep saying men and women. Objectively, I mean male, female. But for the sake of my mouth not having to repeat itself, I'm going to say men and women. Gray matter to white matter. The way that women's brain structure exists, not only in the ratio of gray to white brain matter, but also specifically in the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is the nerve bundle that sits in between the left and right hemispheres of the brain. For women, the corpus callosum, it's almost like it is more, I'm forgetting the word right now, it's more passes in between, right? The way that the corpus callosum exists, more passes in between for a female brain. This allows us to process specifically language and emotionality more rapidly than a male brain. Yeah. So knowing this gives me patience, right? Knowing this gives me patience. I'm loving the smile. Knowing this gives me patience when, if I am, let's say I'm sharing something that feels just like, this makes sense. Emotionally, this makes sense. Emotionally, for me, the fact that I'm experiencing this makes sense, right? Because this, and this. And if I'm noticing that it's taking him more time to process what I'm trying to share, chills. Yeah. This gives me patience because I know literally the structures of his brain require more time to fully process certain elements of emotionality and relationality. Yeah. That doesn't mean that he is less emotionally intelligent than I am. That means that his brain's process might take longer time to arrive through the same process as my brain does. Yeah. I had this experience in the last 3 days. Travis came back from Burning Man. I'm like, tell me all about it. And he sits down in this chair right here. I'm sitting here, and he pretty much gives me a daily schedule. And in my brain, I'm like, how did you feel? What was it like for you? What were you experiencing? I understand that you went to bed at this time and then you woke up at this time and then you went to breakfast, but I'm like, tell me, what was it like? Right. But again, his process, specifically emotionally and relationally, takes more time through his brain. So before, I might have sat here in the first year, 2 years of our relationship and been like, okay, so how did you feel? Okay, but how did you feel? And he might have been like, well, I'm telling you, right? I'm telling you how it was. No, you're not. You're telling me what you were doing. Tell me how you were feeling. But what I find is when I know this about his brain structure, and I can just be like, patience, right? Patience. Then last night, 2 days after he comes home, he lays down and he just blurts out this whole robust, many stories, emotional charges, like just heartfelt experiences, right? Because his brain, his system has had time to emotionally and relationally process this experience. Yeah. Is that making sense? Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Keep that tracking. Very interesting. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So what I notice here is that if I give him time and space, he'll naturally share more depth as he continues to process his experiences. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I notice that I don't need to try to yank it out of him. but that if I can give him patience, if I can give him time and space, his brain will naturally process that. Our running joke is he takes 3 or 4 days to process. Yeah. Humor, comedy woven into this stuff. Perfect. Yes. Yep. Yep. Yes, yes, yes. Love this. Okay. I'm running out of liquid. Take a couple breaths here. I'm going to do a lot of little pauses in the midst of this because, again, it's like it's giving lecture. It's giving lecture vibes. Yeah, good. And just remembering again that the element of gray to white matter and then the aspect of the corpus callosum is specifically the differences are especially obvious between the male and female brain in emotions, emotional processing, and relational processing. Yeah. So again, just giving even more space, giving even more grace, giving even more patience in contexts that involve relationality and emotionality. I notice my face wants to be tapped. All right, loves. So that is the biological structure of the brain, right? Patience. What I feel most interested in, and the thing that has given me the most room, most width, the most adult for intimacy is hormonally, right? The hormonal difference between the male body and female body. Drop in the chat if you know the obvious difference between the hormonal element of male to female body. Yes. What is it? What is it? Yep. So the circadian to infradian rhythm, absolutely. So that is totally a huge hormonal difference, of course, right? We're cyclical. We're cycling. Yeah, testosterone. Testosterone is really what we're going to be getting into today. Yeah. So testosterone. Testosterone is the male sex hormone. And testosterone is a powerful drug. Testosterone is pretty fucking wild. It is a wild chemical. And we are going to be diving into what testosterone does in the male body. And again, this is learning about this has given me the most ground, the most adult ground in my relationship with a man. Now, what I want to note first is the difference between testosterone in men and women, as in the differing levels, right? So I bet you guys are familiar with, since you already know the 28-day cycle, infradian rhythms, cyclical vibes. Women's bodies have 1 day of peak testosterone. It's the day that you ovulate, right? Huge contributing factor to the level of arousal and libido, huge contributing factor to levels of energy, being able to exercise in a particular way for women, being really social, right? So we have this massive spike of testosterone. It literally looks like a line that's just a hair above nothing, and then and then again, just a hair above nothing. Of course, estrogen also plays a role in that, as estrogen peaks slowly up until ovulation and then drops back down. But that testosterone peak on the day of ovulation is just like, wata for women. Now, that being said, when we have that peak of testosterone, we're like, I am a horny fucking bitch. Like, let's go. I'm feeling hot. I'm feeling good. I feel kind of intense, right? The difference, even at your peak level of testosterone, the day that you ovulate, you have maximum 1/10 of what a male body is always running. Oftentimes, even like 1/20th of what a male body is always running. Damn. Yeah. 1/20th of what a male body is always running, especially if a man eats well and moves, right? If they're physically active, they're going to have higher levels of testosterone. So even at our peak levels of testosterone, we have 1/10 to 1/20th of the amount of testosterone running through our system than a male does every single day of his life. Once they go through puberty. So obviously there's gonna be a difference playing here, yeah? Okay, cool. Couple of breaths here. Testosterone is what I would call an amplifier. And what this means is testosterone amplifies the feelings that are present. It amplifies the energy that's present. It amplifies the response that is present. Okay. So in a safe environment, right? And we're shifting really into the male body right now. In a safe environment, if the male body feels that it is in a safe environment, testosterone amplifies protectiveness. It amplifies generosity, right? Like when you think of provision, men providing for community, testosterone is that thing that amplifies generosity, which is beautiful, right? Testosterone, when the male body is feeling safe, when it's feeling wide, when it's feeling in its adult, testosterone is a gorgeous amplifier of care, protectiveness, generosity. Yeah. But in an environment or in a moment that the male body perceives as being unsafe, perceives as being competitive, perceives as being threatening, testosterone can take the tone of aggression, right? It can turn protectiveness toward aggression. It can turn generosity towards hoarding. Yeah. And the thing we need to note here is that even in an environment that is objectively safe, when the child consciousness is online, there is a level of unsafety that's being perceived. And we know that A, child consciousness is never going to go away. We're all going to die with child strategies. And B, all of us are in child consciousness multiple times a day. Yes? So when a male body is in child consciousness, agitated child consciousness, testosterone is going to amplify the feeling of agitation, right? And the response is going to be pretty obvious. Fascinating. Yeah, definitely. Oh, okay. Let's get into this. So, as we said before, the female brain is wired in such a way, having this behind my face, great, noticing, great anchoring. The female brain is geared toward processing and perceiving emotional information, relational information. And this is hugely evolutionary, right? Of course, we know that back in our tribal era, for women, maintaining relationality and emotional closeness was necessary for survival. We are less good hunters, just objectively. You best believe that this 6.5-month pregnant lady, I would not be the greatest hunter right now. If I have to stand for more than 15 minutes, I'm like, ow, my back hurts. I need to lay down. Right? So evolutionarily, we wired for emotional perceiving, relational perceiving, right? Intaking emotional and relational information. This is a funny duo when a male body system perceives that there's a lack of safety, some lack of safety, right? Because his body language, his voice, his facial expression, all things that our feminine brain is really keyed in to notice subtle changes in, it's going to tend towards this amplified agitation, right? The testosterone in a male body is going to amplify this agitation. And I'm just going to use the word aggression for this. Now, aggression, I wish I could find a different word because I'm not talking about like the tones of abusive aggression, of course, right? We're never talking about that. We're talking about objectively healthy relationships here, objectively safe relationships. But male body language, male voice, male facial expressions, male language can more easily take tones of aggression. Now, what does this mean? What does this mean in your experience? What does this mean in your experience if you notice aggression, tones of aggression in your partner, or do you ever notice tones of aggression in your partner? Do you ever notice tones of aggression in your partner? Withdrawal, intense eyes, agitation for sure. Yeah. This morning, my partner has been off of work for a week and a half. He has an employee that had a task of doing payroll while he was gone. And he comes back to work today and he learns that this guy didn't do the payroll. And now another employee is like really upset with him. She's like, we didn't get paid. And as he's leaving this morning, he's like a mad little bull. Not little, he's like a mad bull. He's like, and he's kind of short and he's kind of snapping. And his language is just like, he maybe drops a fuck in there somewhere. And I'm like, ooh, right? Now, before I understood testosterone, this would have been my judgment. And to me, this is where my child consciousness comes online. If I'm not in understanding of the male body and the male biology, what I see in myself and in other women is that women will judge. Let me know if in the thread if this feels correct. Women will judge. Women will criticize men. My God, why is he fucking reacting like this? This is such an overreaction. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, he's getting so defensive. Oh my gosh, this guy's fucking nuts. Yeah. Yep. When I'm in my child consciousness and he is in this energy of agitation, I want to judge him as being uncontrolled, as being ungrounded, right? When I'm in my adult, when I can be in that understanding, I can just notice defensive. I can notice he's feeling this situation is causing his system to feel or perceive lack of safety, right? Agitation, competition, things coming at him. And his testosterone is responding in a way more of an aggressive tone than I would respond, because what am I? This is laying nicely on my ears and arms. What am I as a woman geared towards? I'm geared towards emotional regulation between parties and relationality. Evolutionarily, right? I want to ensure that my relationships stay smooth for my survival. That's what my primal brain says, right? So if I see this situation that my partner's experiencing, I say, well, I get that guy. He probably had a lot to do. He was doing his job and lots of your job while you were gone. And then I get her being upset because she didn't get paid yesterday. And like, I would be upset too. My female brain is geared toward understanding. It's geared toward the tone of compassion, because that is evolutionarily useful for me to stay in healthy relationship or to stay in smooth relationship. That's not the case for the male brain, right? The male brain wants to protect what is theirs, including themselves. Yeah. This piece, right? This difference between what a female brain would respond like and what a male brain would respond like is what I believe is causing this huge wave of women being like, he's a narcissist. He's a narcissist. He's a narcissist. He's a narcissist too. They're all mostly narcissists. To me, this is a huge indicator of like, women just don't understand men, the difference between men and women. I'm curious if that lands for you, or if it doesn't. That's totally great too. Yeah. Right. If she perceives, oh, why would he be mad at that? Why would he be agitated by that? Right. There's literally this hormonal and biological difference between how a male brain responds and how a female brain responds. Mm-hmm. Yeah, really just anchoring that for a male brain, testosterone, the levels of testosterone present can amplify annoyance, agitation into what to a woman seems like a totally dramatic display of aggression. Yet when we know that, when I know that, when I know that in a moment of agitation, in a moment of crunch, his tone might tend towards what feels to me like aggression. If I know that, and I know that that's not just some character flaw of his, but rather that it is literally hormonally what happens in his body, I have more room. I have more understanding. I have less charge. I make it mean less something about his character or about our relationship, and I make it mean more. He's got a lot of testosterone. It makes his voice kind of loud sometimes. My child is like, why is your bad mood affecting me if it's not about me? Totally. Totally. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. Because that male energy, that testosterone, remember, it's an amplifier. It gets big. It has a lot of size. Uh-huh. I get annoyed with the moods. Yeah, absolutely. Right? Those moods, they're so often connected to our partner's child consciousness. And of course, our preference would be my partner's in his adult. Yeah. I would prefer my partner to be in his adult consciousness versus his child consciousness. Yeah. And that becomes our practice of, okay, reality is not matching my preferences right now. Yeah. Reality is not matching my preferences right now. What am I going to do about it? How do I want to respond? Do I want to play in my child, or do I want to play in my adult? And we're not always going to choose the adult, right? Not always going to choose the adult. Mm-hmm. This is also, to me, I hear this language online a lot of like, he's just a little boy in a man's body. And I'm like, how often are we just little girls in women's bodies? Often. Every day. Every day I'm somewhere in my little girl every day, multiple times a day. I notice my whole back body, my whole back rib cage opens when I own that. When I own that, yeah, I feel settled. I'm sad for the lack of understanding for ourselves and each other. Yes. Yeah, there's so much grief. There's so much grief in this process of seeing, of widening, right? Literally widening. That's what adult consciousness is. It's what building adult consciousness is. It's widening. And when we widen, we see a lot more. And not all of it is pretty or easy to look at. A lot of it's painful. A lot of it's hurtful. Yeah. one of the things I want to start to close with is that even though testosterone is an amplifier, it gets big, gets loud, right? Haley, you used a word, withdrawal. So this is like men learning that their testosterone, that their bigness, that their aggression is not safe, it's not wanted, it's not welcome. So men will tend to, or a tendency for men can be to withdraw, to shut down, right? Because they're like, I can't, I need to numb this. I need to numb this because it's bad. Not the nice kind of chills down my left arm. Yeah. Yeah. So that withdrawal is so normal today. That withdrawal was not normal evolutionarily, right? But in today's culture, it's very normal for men to respond in that way to their bigness, to the size, to the amplification of their energy. But what I want to note here is it's not that we as women or we as a man's woman don't get to ask him to soften that. You do get to ask him to be in the practice of softening that. You do get to be in the practice of asking him to speak to you differently, to respond to you differently, to respond to moments differently. Ooh, got the visual of a man alone in a dark room clenching their head. I'm curious if you've ever heard the practice. What's that called? In men's work, there's this practice that men will do called the caged man. So much grief seeing my man numb. That made my calves tingle. Yeah, Jeannie, the image of the caged man, it's this practice that men in men's work will go through of essentially it's this like wildness that men have, that testosterone creates, this wild amplification. It's so powerful. And in the last, call it 150 years, it's been like, you cannot bring that. You cannot bring that forward. You cannot bring that size forward. You're too dangerous. You need to put that in a cage in the basement. And like they go through this process of like going into the basement and opening the cage and letting this caged man out. It's like makes me tear, honestly. There's just so much energy for men that's been yeah, goosebumps, me too. There's so much energy for men that's been demonized. In, same with women. There's so much energy that women have that's been demonized. Yeah. Okay, what I wanted to say though is we get to ask our men to soften. We get to ask our men to respond differently to us. We get to ask our men to respond differently to stress, right? To feelings of unsafety, agitation. And what I want you to remember in this process is asking him to change that response is asking him to practice moving and behaving against his biology. And it's not that that's wrong. I don't believe that that's wrong. But it is a practice that, in my opinion, that's a lifelong practice. So if a woman comes to me and tells me, well, I told my man, if you keep responding like that, I'm out. And lo and behold, Ellie, 2 weeks later, he was still responding like that. So I'm out. I'm like, you gave him 2 weeks to try to shift a behavior that is literally being driven by his endocrine system. To me, the greatest gift we can give ourselves and our men is extending the timeline. Extending the timeline of these practices, right? Widening the expectation that when we make these requests of like, I really don't like when you talk to me like that, right? For me, at the beginning of my relationship, I was like, when you turn this tone in the car, I'm like, I want to get out on the side of the road and walk home, right? One of the greatest gifts that we can give to him and to ourselves is to widen the expectation that these are going to be lifelong practices. Yeah. That widening is giving grace to him, which actually gives your man more room to practice. And I'm going to say that again because it's really important. Widening the timeline of results, widening the timeline of changes that you're requesting from your man gives him more grace, which actually creates more space for him to practice. And it gives you space as a woman to soften judgment and agitation as he practices, as he navigates his child consciousness, as he navigates his own biology, as we navigate our capacity to hold his energy. That's really important. As we practice our capacity to hold his energy, we are not just feminine energy beings. He is not just a masculine energy being. That I feel like is the miss of polarity, when polarity doesn't speak first to intimacy. Because if I cannot see my man in his wildness, feminine, if I say, no, you have to hold me because you're the man and I'm the woman, I shut down his wildness. I shut down his feminine energy that's big and wild and dynamic and powerful. If I say, no, you are the man, you always have to hold me because I'm the woman, and that's polarizing, that's polarity, that's correct. That banishes that part of him to the proverbial basement, to the cage. Yeah. So when we can expand this timeline of the results of the expectations, I give him more space, more grace to be in practice. And I give myself more room to widen my own capacity, widen my own capacity to hold, to be with, right? Masculine practice for me, yeah, maybe. But that is intimacy. To me, intimacy is I can play both. I have room for both of you, both of you, my man, right? I have room for your masculine and your feminine. Yeah. Mm. Deep breath into that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I wonder what's present for you. What's happening for you? I'm also noting and tracking that it's 11, almost 11:15 or 15 after the hour. So even though I have a little bit more, I'm not going to do it right now. I feel slow, like it's a lot to process. I feel good. It is. It is a lot to process. Yeah. Okay, take just a few more breaths here. And just let your body start to shift. Let your body start to move, and let these breaths just be like a needle with thread. Easy breaths. You don't have to force them. But just taking these next breaths like they're a needle with thread, like they're just weaving, stitching, sewing, integrative breaths. I feel the appreciation I was looking for. Yeah, good. Mm. Mm. I'm just taking two more of these breaths, like they could just stitch it, weave it, sew it all together. And even if your mind is still kind of reaching or stretching or grappling, know that that's totally fine. You can include that. Not a problem. Yeah, so good. Okay, loves. So we'll be in this contemplation for this next bit of time inside of Raw Hot Power of intimacy with men. I think I'll be dropping some audio recordings just to continue to weave this and deepen this and clarify this. Because, like Haley said, it's a lot to process. But what I want to know before we exit is, what are you leaving with? What are you leaving with? Oh, contemplation. Yay. Like my word of the year. Grief for what I didn't understand and how it has affected my partner. Yeah, so tender with that. Oh, so tender with that. And to me, like, grief is such an indicator of adult. Wide, right? Wide eyes, a lot of seeing, sensing where my child shows up in ways I wasn't aware of course. Yeah, again, adult, big sight. Yeah. Yeah. So good. Oh, thank you so much for being on this call with me today, ladies. Oh, it's so exciting and just, yeah, I feel really humbled and in my humility to be in these conversations, like specifically this conversation. This is one that's so tender and sensitive to my experience as well. Yeah, and I'm just so here for this. And so in the thread, we'll be tracking, yeah, tracking what is present in this contemplation, right? For those of us in partnership, what's present in our field of intimacy. Yeah. Okay, loves. We'll close just with 3 breaths. Yeah. So just letting your body get itself settled, adjusted, coming to the bottom of this next exhale. An easy breath in, breath out. Twice more, just like that, exactly what your body needs. Ah, one breath in, nice width in the ribs. Let it go. I'm just closing with this prayer, this intent that this information, this insight would just continue to weave in our bodies, in our fields, in our minds, in our perceptions as women in a good way, in a way that amplifies not only us and our intimacy and our relational power, but also amplifies the men that we come into contact in this life, closely or distantly. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm just bringing so much honor. Okay, beautiful women. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, I love you both. I'm so excited to see you in the thread through the week. Thank you for being down to reschedule for me. I had such a great day on Tuesday. Oxytocin high off the charts. But I will see you in the thread. I'm so excited. Bye, loves.